Hello and welcome back to SpaceOil Guitars. So I'm just going to turn this off. So last episode I epoxied the body, and now it's time to start sanding it down. We're going to sand it with very fine paper, starting with I think 600, then 800 and 1200. And that is just because we want to obviously even it out, but we don't want to go through too much of the epoxy. I haven't wiped it off yet because I'm not going to apply finish to it, but it's a little bit sticky. So we're going to wipe that off and then sand. So stay tuned. All right, so I have my paper here. I'm not going to be too careful because I think maybe we'll go with another coat as well. I will just have to see how it turns out. So I'm using one of my cork sanding blocks, and I'm leaving the rough grit on because it helps keep the finer grit on as well. Now this is wet and dry paper, so if you want to sand, make sure if it's wet paper that you use it with water. This is wet and dry, so I can use it as well. What it says on the box really is wet and dry. So I'm going to go, as you may know, I have a light just above the bench. As you can see, it's light illuminating my arm. That helps me to see any inconsistencies by looking this way. The light sort of reflects it, and this turns into sort of a mirror surface. So that makes it very easy for me to see if I need to pay special attention to some areas. Alright, so now I've sanded the entire body to 800, and I'm going to wipe off because sometimes there are some like sanding residues, that skin that I talk about sort of gets into, well, it's just like a bit of skin, yeah, sort of a little sticky sanding residue that you can't really get off. So I'm just quickly wiping the body down. I'm not trying to get it wet, I'm trying to get stuff off. And then we're going to let it rest for another day. So you can see there, it's not much, but there's a little bit coming off on the paper. That's what we want to get away. We get all that off. then let this rest for another day. I do, at least. You probably could start to apply finish straight away, or do another coat of epoxy if you want. But I'm going to wait until tomorrow to decide, because I feel that once the skin has been taken off the epoxy, that it's sort of it needs to harden again. That might just be my feeling. I'm not an epoxy guy. I'm sure those of you who build like these epoxy tables and stuff, tearing your hair out if you're watching, which I'm sure you're not. Why would you? Unless you're part of the Great Guitar Build-Off. But it's a great, you can see I sort of nicked the body here when I was scraping the binding off, and that's completely filled. Also, there was a little nick up here and here from scraping the body, and it's all come off, or they've been filled by the epoxy. So now I'm gonna let this rest, and I'm gonna start working a little bit on the neck. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to my spindle sander and take down the carbon fiber to be flush with the head, because that's sort of paramount. Also, it's big, and if I sort of apply pressure this way or knock it off, I might break it off the headstock. So that's what I'm going to go do first, and then we're going to start nipping some frets down and cleaning up this veneer. Alright, so the last video had no audio, and the reason for that was I needed to leave my dust extraction system running for a while, especially after doing carbon fiber. So you can see I've taken it down to headstock size, removed the plastic film, and then just attached some, because it was all ragged and damaged. But I put some masking tape on, and that's just for protection, because it does tend to, since it's so high gloss and it's so rock hard, it tends to scratch pretty easily. And I find that if you put some clear lacquer on it in the finishing process, you can sort of buff that out, but you cannot buff out the carbon fiber scratches themselves. So I want to keep that protected. So what I'm going to do now is to drill through the carbon fiber so that we get a hole all the way through, and then hopefully I'll be able to find all the small holes that I drilled for the tuners. So that's what I'm going to do now. So, sorry, I still have another dust guy on. So I'm going to find my battery drill, and then I think we're going to start pretty small and then sort of sand our way up, because carbon fiber doesn't like torsional force, but you can sand it very easily. So I'm gonna start pretty small, and then we'll just work our way up, I think, or work our way up to the point where I can get sanding something or other through. So let's see. I think maybe this is overkill going this small. And you're going to want an engineer's drill bit or a metal drill bit. And also put something underneath just for protection. This is some scrap wood I have from something I built. This is I have the same one for my fret slotting jig, and I just either bolt this down or clamp it to anywhere basically. So there you know that, but this is just basically a sacrificial piece of wood now. So that went better than I had expected. And I'm just going to clean these up. And I'm thinking maybe I can just use, what do you call them? Countersinkers. From the other side, but I don't know if they will center completely, so it's a bit of a gamble. So I think maybe I'll have to go with files or whatever. I have this kit with countersinkers. And I think this is 10. If I go from the top with this, how can this be 10? I'll have to double check that. Maybe the holes have shrunk, although I doubt that. It is 10, yeah. And my tuners require 10, so what am I doing here? Is it the epoxy that's doing this? I think maybe if I go the other way, I mean sort of against the rotation. I need to double check my tuners. I don't want to do anything rash. $972. So that is 10. It's the right size. So we'll give it a go. Yeah, they are 10. It's just the veneer that's swelled. I'm not getting through the carbon with this. So I'll have to come up with something. Maybe if I go from this side. That's not really doing anything. Let's see if I can find a bigger drill bit, and then we'll gradually work our way up, and then we'll just countersink the holes. Or do we need to countersink? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just keep them super flush. Let's see. It's 9, 8, 7. Go 7, 8, 9. That should do it. Hopefully. You may see me basically destroy the guitar at this point. Right. Can put this away now. And I'm going to countersink those. So that's not a good look. Can you see that? They're sort of sticking out a bit. So I'm going to countersink them with 16, I think. Let's give it a go. Let's not do our first one in the center. Yeah, I'm gonna go higher speeds. And there we go. Happy with that. Happy with that. All right, so let's get our tuners in place. And I'm going to realign this camera so you can see what's happening. Let's get our tuners. I didn't mark these, but I wish I did. But there are only 2 possible combinations because they are staggered. High, low, I think. These 2 are the same.